And welcome back to Sports the NEMO Way, the Bill Russell episode. The 6'10", 215-pound center is an 11-time champ, 5-time MVP, 12-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA, playing 13 years in the league after being the second overall pick, and he is a Hall of Famer. I don't know if I should keep giving that. Like, everybody now is a Hall of Famer. With career averages of 15, 22, and 4 on 44% shooting. And now I will kick over to Wade, who has Russell ranked the lowest of anyone at 25 overall and 7 on his center list. Wade?
Alrighty. Well, with Bill Russell, everyone always goes to 11 championships. That's obviously his calling card. The most in NBA history, so obviously that's impressive. Obviously another great rebounder, over 20 a game. Him and Wilt dominate the rebound record books, obviously. Decent scorer for his time, okay. But was really actually a really good passer, kind of an aspect that goes underrated for him. He was a good passing big man. I've read multiple times that was one of the things that actually helped the Celtics a lot. They could use him to pass out of the post to really help their offense. With Bill Russell, I think, in my opinion, his greatest parts of his game were defense, his underrated passing, and he was a great leader, probably one of the best leaders, in the sports history, which probably is an underrated thing to have, but it is very important. He was even a player coach for a while to talk about his leadership and his skills as far as that. And was a successful player coach. I think they won a few of those last few championships, with him as the coach / player. Then he went on to coach a little bit after that, I believe. I know I'm going to be viewed as the Russell hater because I have him at 25, but I don't really hate him. I just...
So you don't have a koozie type feel for Russell?
No, I mean, I put him as one of the top 25 players. But yeah, we can get into why I'm at 25 later. But yeah, that's what I think of when I think of Bill Russell.
All right. Well, that will lead us to Drew, who also has him at 25 overall, but 6 on his center list. Drew?
Kind of like what Wade said about him coaching. He won 2 titles as a coach as well and is in the Hall of Fame both as a player and a coach. So, yeah. I think his best part of his game was definitely his defense and rebounding, be able to being one of the only guys above 4 of only players in the league at that time above 6'9", so that gave him advantage when they weren't playing one of those 3 other guys. His passing for a big guy back then was definitely, I think, underrated. Not many people talk about that because with like the pace of play and stuff, they just kind of throw that out. And his scoring was all right for his time period. I mean, but he had a bunch of Hall of Famers with him, so maybe he wasn't asked to score as much, but rebound the ball. So that's just my opening statement on Bill.
All right. Well, that will lead us to Uncle Doug, who has him a big jump up at number 10 overall and 4 on his centers list. Uncle Doug?
Yeah, well, as like Wade said, obviously when you think Bill Russell, you think the 11 titles. Point-wise, he peaked out at 18. His average was 15, which is not top 250 in the NBA. He finished with 14,000 points. He's 164th on the list. Rebounding, his peak year was 24.7. He ended up with 21,600 rebounds, which is second on the list. His rebounding average of 22.5 is also second on the all-time list. He did end up with over 4,000 assists. Ended up 118th on the assist list, which for a big man is pretty impressive. There's a lot we can talk about Russell, but whenever you talk about Russell, you end up talking about Wilt, and we'll get into that more, I'm sure, later. But we'll go with just those numbers for the. And one other thing I do want to talk about later is a little bit about the MVPs. He does have 5.
Yes.
But
we can talk.
I don't know. We'll have to talk about some of those MVPs. There's some pretty crazy numbers back in those days, and
it's part of the reason why his down to number 25 on my list.
Okay, well. Anyway, I'll leave it at that for my opening statement.
All right, and that will lead to myself, who has him at number 8 overall and 3 on his centers list. Well, as per usual, I have an old guy's pace-adjusted stats. But I do have a question after I say them. His pace-adjusted stats are 12, 12, and 3. So, when we did Oscar, he lost 2 rebounds a game.
Right.
Russell and Chamberlain lose 12 a game. Like, I realized their number was bigger, so they would probably lose more.
Right.
But, like, that's like 5 or 6 times the amount of rebounds they lost. Like, I mean, obviously, I don't know the equation they use for pace adjustment, but does this not seem crazy?
Does the website factor in other things like era and position and stuff?
Well, it may look at the team,
it only has guys from that era in it. There's only 6 guys done on it. It's Wilt, Russell, Oscar, Bob Pettit,
Jerry West, and Elgin Baylor. Those are the only guys on it.
Okay. So they when they use the numbers they use, are they specific to the team you play on, or they just use like league average numbers?
That's a good question. I should have looked at that.
Yeah.
That might be part of it because obviously Oscar. I mean, the Celtics and the Lakers. Most of those guys are on one of those 2 teams, but Oscar would have been with somebody else.
Yeah, Oscar been by himself for a lot of that time.
Yeah.
Didn't the Celtics with Cousy and Russell set the record for most possessions for
They
a
did.
team?
Yeah. One of those early '60s teams has the record for most possessions.
If they had the most possessions ever in a season, it's going to knock them more than it would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be my guess as to why there's a difference.
It was some astronomical number of their possessions one year.
Mm-hmm.
So it might affect him more than it would someone that played up at a slower pace.
So what did you say his pace adjusted stats were?
12 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists.
Well, the 12 rebounds is not 12. The 12 points is funny because that's when the lane widened. That's what his points became. He started averaging 12 a game. Later on, when the lane got out to 16 instead of 12.
But here's the most interesting thing I was able to find. Okay, there are 135 games of Bill Russell's career that are either on video or the box score includes blocks. Okay. On those, these are not like 135 straight. These are 135 games spread out over the course of his career. During those 135 games, Bill Russell averages 8.6 blocks per game. Mm-hmm. Pace adjusted, that comes to 7.2. 7.2 blocks per game. Which was, it took me by surprise because everything you read's like, man, Russell and Wilt blocked everything. But you kind of always take that with a grain of salt. Like, you kind of always like, prove it, you know? Mm-hmm. But that's an asinine number. We don't even see half that. You know, like that's
right. Yeah.
Barely see any blocks nowadays.
Well, yeah, guys lead the league in blocks with like 1.8 now. Yeah. But I think part of that's because nobody's in the paint, so like there's nobody shot to block. Yeah. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'll move on from that. People will touched on it, 11 championships in 13 years. At one point, they won 8 in a row. His playoff stats are better than his regular season stats. He averages a point more a game and 3 rebounds more per game in the playoffs than his regular season. So that's my opening statement on Bill Russell, which will lead us to Ray, who has him ranked the highest of all of us at number 5 overall and number 1 on his centers list. Ray?
All right. So when I made this list, Bill Russell just always pops out there because 11 titles. So that's a big reason I put him up there. But I don't really know the player because you can't really watch him. But I guess my opening statement is just going to be like that was a couple weeks ago, where I just asked some questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, I liked it. I liked it a couple weeks ago. So.
Yeah, I did
Okay.
too.
So, does he check the boxes? Titles, definitely. Accolades, titles, MVP, stats. Points are a little low, but he averages a double-double, so I'll let that slide a little bit, I guess.
Charles, what about? Never mind. Go ahead.
If you're going to say something about Charles Oakley, we can talk about that another day.
No, I don't want to. We've already talked about it too much.
Oh, my gosh. I knew. All right. So, first question, I guess, that doesn't involve Charles Oakley.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
The era that he played in
Mm-hmm.
is not that great.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a huge factor that led to all those titles? Pace of play, lack of competition. Is the era that he played in, is that a big, huge factor to his historic title career, his rebounds, everything? Is that the big factor where he got where he is? Whoever wants.
I guess my question is, are you saying what? I don't know. Maybe what can somebody else go?
So, I think the era had an effect, yeah.
Okay.
Because if he played later when there were a bunch of big centers, I mean, when you're talking Kareem and Wes Unseld and Artis Gilmore, and then you move on a few years later when you had Willis Reed and Patrick Ewing and
Elijah
Wan and all them, I don't think Russell does what he was doing back in the late 50s, early 60s. Because like Drew mentioned,
Yeah,
there were only like 4 or 5 guys that were 6'9", 6'10".
and two of
Yeah.
them were Bill Russell and Wilt.
Yeah, when he got drafted, there was only 4.
Yeah.
And say
So
it's
I
19, in,
think
19,
that made a big difference.
in 1965, Bill Russell was the shortest center in the league, and he remained the shortest center in the league after that for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
So like he was one of the big guys for a little while, and then he became the shortest center in the league.
Okay. And to branch off on that, is him being the shortest center, does that elevate him up higher, or does that kind of keep him to where he's at? Because if you're shorter, you're kind of pushing a little harder, to get what you need to get done. But, I mean, if you're kind of a taller center, you ain't really got to work near as much. So are we at a point where maybe he gets a little leg up for being shorter? Or is it kind of a handicap? And what do you guys think?
I don't think being shorter played a role in how I viewed it. As far as like whether anything, I don't think he's not short enough where it's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because I mean, we all have guys his height or shorter on our list. Willis Reed 6'9".
Right, yeah. Willis Reed with that.
I mean, Wes Unseld 6'7".
Him
Right.
and Dwight Howard are the same height.
Yeah, Dwight Howard 6'9". I mean, so we've seen. I mean, half the league centers are 6'9" now, or 6'6" or whatever. I mean, Zion's a big man, and Draymond Green, and Draymond's what 6'7". So I mean, he's not a center all the time, but I think his height isn't a huge factor in any direction. He wasn't Wilt at the beginning of his career. He wasn't Wilt who was over 7 foot and just towering over everybody. Everybody had guys 6'7", 6'8" when so being an inch or two taller wasn't the end of the world. But then later, pretty much every team had a 7-footer, and the Celtics didn't. So I mean, he's not 6'7" or 6'6" trying to play center. But he's also not towering, I guess is what I'm saying. So he's kind of there in the middle where it's,
Okay. And then some of you got him way like mid-range. Some got him a little up top. Do you think the era that he played in, he gets kind of overlooked because nobody's really seen the era and it's kind of getting dogged and shit on a little bit. Does the era? I mean, going back to the era thing, does the 11 titles, is that just pretty much his trademark? And that's like you're cruising down the street and you see the big flashing sign on a sign that makes you want to stop and say, "Oh yeah, there's Bill Russell," or say maybe we take the titles away. Do you still view him the same way? I mean, we're not going to view him the same way, but is, the titles just pretty much his claim to fame, and that's where we stop at, and is that why we recognize him? And I mean, we know he's talented. We know he's got defensive skills, rebounding, but is he just going to be known for the 11 titles?
Well, first off, to answer your first question was, do you discredit him for his era? Yes. I mean, I can't say otherwise.
Right.
And yes, is his biggest claim to fame 11 championships? Yes, because that's ridiculous. But do I think that's everything? No. He's one of the greatest defenders of all time. He's second all time in rebounds and rebound average, like Uncle Doug said. Wade mentioned his passing and especially his passing numbers for a center. Like they mentioned it earlier, like when Kuzi retired in 66, I think is 65 when Kuzi retired. Yeah, after 65, Kuzi retired. Bill was essentially like their point center. Like they put him at the elbow all the time and ran their offense through him because they didn't have a point guard. So I mean, no, that's not everything.
Okay. All right, I can run with that. Okay, and then the last what-if question, or the last question I got anyway. So we broke it down. So he's a good defender, rebounder, good passing big man, not the greatest scorer. But now we come down to the biggest one, is if we take the titles away, where is he going to be at? Is he even going to be on the list? Is he going to be somewhere at the end? I mean, is he good enough to be on here without the titles? Because we've got a few on our list that don't have any titles at all, and we're in the top 50. So if we take his titles away, which is a big chunk of his fame, is he still on the list?
Well, I'll say this. If you take his titles away, is he still on my list? Probably not. I would say pretty much, I would say almost a guarantee no. But we're taking 11 titles away, not one or two.
Yeah.
There's 11 of them.
Well, let me throw this one out here. I'll just make a random. Say we give him 3 titles. He botched the other, whatever. Is 3 putting him up there somewhere? I mean, is 3 good enough to be on the list?
He'd probably still make my list, but he wouldn't be nearly this high.
He wouldn't be top 10 all time.
No,
no,
would not.
No, but yeah, I would say 3 championships. Here's the thing: is Russell won a bunch of championships when he wasn't supposed to. Like he wasn't the favorite, and he was winning the titles. So, like, if you're saying if he would have done what he was supposed to, because that's one of the big arguments we go back with LeBron and Jordan. You always hear like, well, Jordan was the favorite, so he was supposed to win. Yeah, but LeBron doesn't always win when he's the favorite. That's the argument you always hear. Like, he was heavily favored in the episode we covered in the Dirk episode. He's
exactly
very heavily favored and choked that series away. But Russell won when he was favored and then continued to win when he wasn't favored. So I mean, I guess if we're saying if he'd have stopped winning when other teams got better, yeah, but he was still. 3 championships is a lot. It's more than the majority of our lists.
Okay. All right.
I'm doing all the talking here, guys. You guys can talk and answer some questions. I don't mind.
And that's really all I got. That's kind of like my thought process, because we've talked a lot about stats alone and titles alone. So, and Bill Russell's got the high-end titles, and he's got some good stats to boot. So, That's why I kind of wanted to do it that way to kind of show, I mean, is he good enough with them, good enough without them? And that's kind of where I'm at. So there we are. That's my opening questionnaire.
All right, thanks, Ray. Well, I think we return to the Wade and Drew.
Well, I've kind of got something up my sleeve, kind of what Ray said. Let's not talk about the championships anymore. What about we talk about his 5 MVPs? If we start taking those away, because some of them I don't think were well deserved. Just saying. We all know about the 1961-62 MVP voting when he won that year with 18 points and 23 rebounds a game. Well, second was Wilt with 50 and 25, and then Oscar with his triple-double, and Elgin with 38 and 18. I mean, I don't know. Out of those 4 guys, I just feel like he didn't have the best. Like, one of the other guys has got more rebounds and points than him. One guy does a triple-double, which we've never heard of again until nowadays. And then Elgin only played 48 games that year because he was coming off and on from doing his
Military
stuff, yeah. So I don't.
Your boy Bob Pettit had a great season.
Right, he was 30-plus and 18-plus as well.
Jerry West also had a pretty good season.
Yeah.
Yeah, West is 38 and 5. Pettit's 31, 18 and 3.
I don't know. I just feel like that one for sure.
I think really we've talked about these 60s guys quite a bit now because I think he's like the second to last one because we got we've already done West and Baylor and Kuzi and Oscar. So it's just Wilt and Russell left, I think. And we talked about Pettit. I think it was the MVP came down to the best player on the team with the best record in the league. That's what it looks like.
That's kind of what I've got. I've listed all the MVPs like you did, Drew, and I broke them down. And there's several years that, to me, it shouldn't even be close.
Well, yeah, like Bill Russell's last MVP year, he scores 14 points a game.
Yeah.
And wins the MVP. I mean, yes, he has 24 rebounds, but when you score 14 points a game, you just don't see that anymore. An MVP only scoring 14 points a game.
But in this day and age, not now, but then, it wasn't necessarily the best player. It was who won. I really, and I have this problem with the MVP anyway. They still do it to some extent now, I think. I think they should change the award to I don't know. They need to rename it.
The MVP,
most outstanding player, and forget the valuable part.
Well, here's my thing is I think the problem with the award is it means different things to different people.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it being most valuable player because I do think guys that put up huge numbers on shit teams, and I'm not talking about these guys. These guys were all playoff teams. But I mean, like, are we going to give Cat the MVP because he put up a huge season and missed the playoffs? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to be there should be no value in those numbers. I don't have a problem with the word value. You know what I'm saying? But I do think the team should be decent. You know, I mean, but it's weird.
The team is a big function of who else is on the team.
Yeah.
You know.
But then we don't do it in other awards though, which is a problem.
Right.
Like, okay, so I know I keep using LeBron as exception as rules, and it's weird, but it just come to my mind. LeBron won Rookie of the Year. Okay. And the Cavs were awful.
Mm.
And Carmelo put up almost identical stats, and his team made the playoffs.
I think wasn't Carmelo's stats a smidge bit better.
It might have been, but I mean they were similar.
Yeah.
And
I always thought that was a crock.
And I was like, Carmelo's clearly the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I thought so.
Because his numbers are right there with him, only his numbers are leading to winning.
Right.
You know, because he's the leading scorer on a playoff team. That's so much harder to do than filling up stats on a shit team.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I do now, kind of just the best rookie who scores the most on a good team.
Right. And I realize the Rookie of the Year and MVP are different. I'm not saying they're exact, because most of the really good rookies go to shitty teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that, but it's weird the way things are voted on.
It is.
I think this happens in a lot of sports. the Celtics back then kind of got a similar treatment as what happened in baseball with the Yankees back in the day. A lot of times they were just going to give it to a Yankee player because they were the best team. They were the most famous team. They were stacked with these great players. A Yankee was probably going to get it.
Yeah, I mean, I always give this example, but
I mean,
Ted Williams won the Triple Crown, and Joe DiMaggio won the MVP. And then 2 years later, he loses to Joe DiMaggio, still an all-time great player. You're kind of like, oh, that's weird, but fine. Then Ted gets the Triple Crown again, and the second baseman for the Yankees named Joe Gordon wins MVP of the league.
yeah. And back then, the Celtics were the Yankees. They were the ones winning all the time. They were pretty much winning every year. They had all the great players, or not all of them, but you get my point. So yeah, and then I feel like they have to give that dominant team, some of their players, some credit. So that's just kind of how it went.
Did you have any more to add there, Drew?
No, I just want to talk a little bit about the MVPs. I know we talk about it all the time, but I still felt like we need to talk about them a little bit.
Fair enough.
Well, I read quite a bit of stuff about Wilt and Russell because you seem like you always see the two of them together because they were a lot. And they asked Wilt about, because they talked, most of the articles talk about Wilt won the regular season, but Russell usually found a way to win in the playoffs. They asked Wilt about it, and Wilt's comment was, teams win, not just Bill Russell. He says, I lost to the Celtics. He said, winning is a team thing. Stats are a personal thing. And that was Wilt's comment on it. Wilt and Russell were actually pretty good friends up until about, I believe it was 69 finals when Chamberlain got hurt. And Russell commented that he was a malingerer and that he was just copping out because the Lakers were losing. And they found out that Wilt really did have a significant injury. He was out for quite a while, and the two of them didn't speak for close to 20 years.
I think they were so close. I've read that Russell used to come hang out with Wilt and sleep on his couch. And
Right. Well, and
they were really good friends.
Came to Wilt's house for Thanksgiving a lot of times.
I was getting ready to say, I listened to an interview with Wilt where he said that Russell came to Wilt's house for Thanksgiving, and Wilt's mother made Thanksgiving dinner, and then that night they had to play. That's why Russell was in town.
Yeah.
So the Celtics won, and Wilt said, my mom told me we shouldn't have fed him so good.
And finally, Russell apologized for the comments, and then they became close again as they were older. But there was quite a time period there where they were not happy with each other. And they were totally different people as far as fans and everything. Russell was toxic.
Russell's an asshole.
I mean, he was. I mean, he was toxic. And Wilt just loved people. He'd sign autographs. He'd visit with kids. If somebody needed help, he'd help them.
He used to go out and play basketball with people all the time and go out and work out with people and all kinds of stuff. He was always all about.
He hung out with celebrities a lot.
Yeah.
Being in L.A. toward the end of his career, that helped a lot.
Well, when Bill Russell got inducted to the Hall of Fame, he didn't go.
Yeah.
He didn't go to the ceremony.
Well, Bill Russell, a lot like Oscar, has a lot of hard feelings for race issues.
He did. Yeah.
He played a big part in that in the 60s and stuff.
And he played his career in Boston, which has a reputation for being
and he didn't
horrible.
Yeah, he did not have kind things to say about Boston.
Well, he always used to say, I play for the Celtics, I don't play for Boston.
Right.
But I've read his autobiography, and then I read the one about him and Red Auerbach's relationship. And he tells stories in both those books about, like, being in the NBA, being like a 6-7 time NBA champ, and not being able to eat at restaurants or not being able to stay at hotels. Like, the team would get a hotel, and then him and Sam Jones and Casey Jones wouldn't be able to go to it, so they'd have to move hotels.
Yeah.
Like just
It was terrible back
ridiculousness.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah, just ridiculous.
I think they had a lot more black players on their team than a lot of other teams had. So it was probably a bigger issue for them than other, because they had him and Casey Jones and Sam Jones and Sanders and
Satch Sanders, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is like, it's really weird because the Celtics, are in Boston, which has a reputation for being, hellaciously racist, but they had the first black player, they had the first black coach, they had the first black starting five. They,
Right.
like Red Auerbach didn't give a shit if you were
Right.
black
As
or
long
not.
as you can win.
Yeah, like Red Auerbach is like, I don't care if you're black, white, polka dotted. If you can help me win basketball games, you can play for the Celtics. And like he was like I mean, that's the thing is like, if you read up on this, the Celtics didn't draft Russell, the Hawks did.
Right.
But their owner didn't want a black player, so they traded him for peanuts to the Celtics.
Yeah.
And so it could have been Bob Pettit playing with Bill Russell, but they didn't want an African American. So
Imagine that, Bob Pettit and Bill Russell.
I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, Willie Mays was drafted by the Red Sox, and Yawkey wouldn't let a black guy play for the Red Sox, so they traded him, and he could have been him and Ted Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, like you look at these stupid stories of like guys just being blatantly ridiculous and essentially hurting your team.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But yeah, so there was a lot of that going back and forth, and a lot of the articles I read said that basically the Boston, because I wanted to know why Boston always seemed to win in the championship series, and most of them said, I forget how many times that Wilt and Russell faced each other. The majority of the time, Russell did have the better team. There were a couple years that Wilt had the better team, and one year I think they said they were about even. But they said the biggest difference was Red Auerbach, because Chamberlain played for a whole bunch of different coaches, and Russell only played for himself or Auerbach. And Auerbach was a really good coach. He was very innovative at that time.
Oh yeah. I'm talking about what you're talking about. I have the stats for them playing each other. In so this is one of the things that kind of stuck out in my head with Russell and his team. In the regular season, when they played each other 94 times.
which is insane, by the way.
Yeah. Well, there was only varying on the year, 8 to 11 teams back then.
Yeah.
94 times. Now Russell wins 57 to Wilt's 37. But when they play each other, Wilt averages 30 points to Russell's 14. Chamberlain gets 28 boards to his 23. And Chamberlain shoots just below 50% to Russell's 37. And then you go to the playoffs, where obviously everyone, Russell's known for winning in the playoffs, and Chamberlain's known for not always showing up in the playoffs. They play 49 times. Russell gets 29 victories. Wilt gets 20. But even in the playoffs, when Wilt had his struggles, it's points just under 26 for Wilt, 15 for Bill Russell, 28 rebounds to 24 in favor of Chamberlain, and the percentage again is Wilt a little over 50% to Russell's 41. So he consistently outplayed him, he dominated him in the regular season, still pretty significantly outplayed him in the playoffs, but Russell's team always won the majority of the time.
This is off subject, but I just realized this. I'm looking at Wilt's stats. Wilt shot higher from the field than he did from the free throw line.
They were both bad from the free throw line.
Yeah.
In their regular season matchups, their free throw percentages are 49 and 54.
Holy crap.
Well, I'll give you this. This game. Well, first off, I watched an interview with Elgin Baylor. Okay. And Elgin Baylor was talking about the great players he played with and against and so on. And Russell came up, and he makes the comment during the interview of how hellaciously efficient Russell was from the field. And he's like, well, people were comparing him to Wilt. So he's like, people don't look at it, but he's much more efficient than all the other people in the league. So then I was like, well, I got to look into this because this is weird. Because, his field goal percentage is only 44%. So it's not like it's high by any means. So the league average field goal percentage for a player during, Wilt, during Russell's career is 38%.
I heard in a podcast that it was Ryan Russillo was talking about just how the game was played back then. And it was like in the 40s, going into the 50s. Some years, the league leader. Dear God, I can't talk. Some of those years shot below 40%.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously it wasn't really until the league leader was close to 50% with field goal percentage. It was low 40s, sometimes in the 30s, and that was the league leader in field goal percentage. Well, that's why they had so many rebounds.
Yeah.
All the extra possessions and the terrible shooting, there's 30, 40 extra rebounds to go around for the entire team. And if you're the big man, you're going to grab the majority of those, which really inflated those stats.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the highlights on YouTube, like, they are literally running up the floor as fast as they can and getting a shot up as quickly, as quickly as possible. It seems like it's not who can get a good shot; it's who can get the ball up fastest. Like, it's like a race.
Yeah, they make the 7 seconds or less Suns look slow.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, they were playing like 40 more possessions a game than the 7 seconds or less Suns.
Yeah. Well, the Suns even then play slower than what a lot of teams do now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I got a question about that I don't know really dawned on me until now, but is that like their whole strategy was back in the day? Just run down the court and just catch the ball and shoot it? Or
it was just, basketball was new. The NBA was new. It's just kind of the evolution of the sport. They were trying to figure stuff out then, just like with every sport. The beginning's always a little rough, and then they just, over time you learn more effective ways to do things. And back then they thought pushing it was the best way to do it.
Well, I think. Sorry.
Sorry.
I was going to say the other thing I think is that's how they ran Mikan out of the league.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
So they were probably like, we don't want another Mikan. Let's keep doing this. And essentially that's what they were trying to do to Wilt too. They're like, let's just keep running, and Wilt won't be able to get up the floor in time for us to before we score. Okay. I think that's what a lot of teams' thought process was. That was the thing. Like, Wilt early in his career wasn't the big guy we see in a lot of highlights. He was really skinny and really quick.
He was really fast. He was a sprinter, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he ran track at Kansas, maybe.
Yeah.
He was fast.
But and that was another thing that made Russell successful. Is Russell was, flew up and down the floor with the rest of those guys. He was very athletic as well.
He's a good athlete.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sorry. Go ahead, Uncle Doug. You had something to say?
No. Go ahead. I'm good.
Well, as far as him being a good athlete, I have a couple things on here about that. In 1956, Bill Russell finished third in the United States in the high jump. By the way, this has nothing to do with his athleticism, but I have it on here, and we kind of touched on it earlier. He was a player coach for 3 seasons and won 2 championships. But here's a couple of things. I read 2 different places that Bill Russell had a 48-inch vertical, which is insane. He also has a 7'4" wingspan.
Yeah, I knew he had long arms.
And we were talking about Chamberlain earlier in Chamberlain's comments. This is also a Chamberlain comment after they've both been retired. If I played for the Celtics instead of Russell, we would not have been successful because I would have demanded the ball and not let them be a team like they were with Russell. So, yeah, I just had a couple of things there that I wanted to touch on with the athleticism and stuff.
Oh yeah. Are we doing litigation today?
Yeah, I have my litigation stuff.
Oh, okay. We were getting a ways in. I didn't know if we were doing it or not.
Yeah, I'll do litigation. Let's do it. All right. Ray,
Yeah.
why do you have Russell ahead of Jabbar?
I don't know. That's
Okay.
probably the titles. Other than that, it's probably just splitting hairs. To be totally honest.
Okay. That's the only one I have for you.
Okay.
Drew,
Oh boy.
I have two for you. With you, I just went with contemporaries, Drew.
Oh, I feel like I know who one is then.
Well, we can go with the obvious one. Why Pettit ahead of Russell?
Well, Pettit did defeat Bill Russell one of the.
I know that's always
years.
that's always your claim to fame is he beat Russell once.
He did. But none of you can tell me Bill Russell, all those years, Bill Russell never had a worse team than Bob Pettit did.
Probably not.
Because he got peanuts when they traded Bill Russell away, like you said earlier. He just. And then Bob Pettit got MVPs in there when his team wasn't the best in the league, and I don't know. He's obviously scored more than Bill Russell. And I think his rebounding numbers are pretty close. They're obviously not as high as him, but I think they're. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think they're about 18.
Pettit was 26.4 and 16.2.
Yeah.
To
I think after we paced Justin, what was it? 25 and 15, kind of like Carmelo.
25 and 12.
25 and 12. Yeah.
So rebounds would have been the same pace adjusted, and he would have been 13 points more.
Yeah. So I think that's why I think. But I don't know. I just don't think Bob Pettit's teams was as good as Bill Russell's teams were. Obviously.
Okay. And the other one, another contemporary, Baylor.
Well, I gotta look for this one because I want to see what I was thinking. Oops, sorry.
You're good. Well, I tried to stick with some contemporaries.
Like it's easier
know.
to compare when it's. What would we say, Elgin Baylor is a small forward or shooting guard?
Small forward. And you're not the only one to do this.
All right.
If you're looking for Elgin's numbers, it was 27.4 and 13.5.
I'd probably go with because he scored so much more than Bill Russell did, but then again, I don't know. I'll probably have to move Bill up. I don't think I value his championships enough for how much he won. So I think with Elgin Baylor, he literally does nothing besides put up those numbers for his 12, 13 years. So I think I might have to move Bill up. I might have him a little low. I don't respect those 11 championships enough. I don't know. It's just, but I think, that one. I mean, Elgin Baylor just doesn't really have much. All he has is Rookie of the Year, and that's it. And 10 All-NBAs. I mean, compared to Russell's 5. I mean, we can argue him all he wants. He still has them. You can't take them away from him and stuff. So, yeah.
Fair enough. That's all I got for you, Drew. Uncle Doug just got one for you.
Okay.
You're the one I struggle with the most for a question because you and I have him ranked almost identically.
Yeah.
So it was like, So I went with this one. Why Shaq ahead of Russell?
Well, of course, obviously Shaq doesn't have as many MVPs or titles. More All-Stars, more NBAs. And I'm not sure, when did the All-Defense come in?
69.
Okay, so that's why he wouldn't have had, because I know Russell only has one, whereas Shaq has 3, but they didn't come in until the end of his career.
Russell's last year. Hey, I actually watched a video the other day that said if Russell would have won 9 Defensive Player of the Year awards and would have been 13-time All-Defense. Now, that was just them talking, no proof to it, obviously, but.
Probably just Shaq's got, his scoring was better, and just not being able to see Bill Russell and seeing Shaq as much as I've seen him play is probably why.
Mm-hmm.
A little of that recency bias. You see a little bit of that when you see somebody more.
Fair enough. And Wade, I have 2 for you, sir. First one is Dr. J.
With Dr. J, I mean, a lot of this I was kind of kept pretty simple. If you put Dr. J in the 50s, what do you think happens? he's gonna just tear some shit up. Like, it's gonna be nuts. Like, it's just gonna be unreal. I mean, in the ABA, when the talent was spread out between the ABA and NBA, he's doing like 30-some points and 15 boards. You put him in the 50s, dear God. Who knows what numbers he's putting up and what he does. And he was still, even after the ABA, when he goes to the NBA, he was still obviously a superstar and put up great all-around numbers. That's kind of just my thought process about it.
All right, and then I ask you about about a contemporary. Why West ahead of Russell?
West probably just offense, and I think they both. If I put you in my top 25, I think you could play in probably almost all eras. I think West, what he was best at, would translate, I think, a little better. Like to your pace-adjusted stats, I know I've made this joke 3 or 4 times, but Russell's Clint Capella. Clint Capella's career averages, I think, are 12 and 10. Bill Russell's pace-adjusted stats were 12 and 12. Really not necessarily, I guess it's kind of an insult, but not really. Clint Capella's a really good player, but he's just not a superstar. I think Jerry West, when you're a phenomenal shooter and you have great vision and passing ability, and you're an extremely intelligent player, I think you're going to be really successful in all eras. So I just think in my head I had West translating a little better in other eras.
I've said both of them I thought could translate, but I thought Russell and West were the hardest cases to make for translation of the superstars. Not counting Pettit, because I don't think Pettit does translate. But as far as Oscar and Wilt and Baylor, I think their cases for translation are much easier to make than Russell and West.
I think you can watch Oscar and Wilt, and they definitely translate easily. I think those are definitely easy. I think Wilt is going to be dominant no matter what. I think when I watched Oscar, everything you need to see, you see. The athleticism, the patience, the vision, the tenacity, rebounding, the versatile ways of scoring. It's pretty. I would agree somewhat, yeah. Elgin is kind of in the middle, I'd say, because he kind of had that goofy, he was considered kind of like a power forward, small forward-ish. Mm-hmm. Then later on, he'd kind of be a bit of a tweener because he's 6'5".
He's a tweener.
So
I just thought
like shooting guard.
He was such a freaky athlete.
Yeah, like I compared him to D Wade in the episode.
Yeah.
He'd be that athletic slasher
Mm-hmm.
that put up good all-around stats. So I'd agree. Probably those three would probably translate a little better.
I saw a comparison for Bill Russell, someone comparing to Ben Wallace.
Well, I think a lot of that just maybe, I don't know if he'd be quite that offensively limited, but
I don't think he'd be that.
You can make a case. His offense, when he played, he's a decent offensive player, but not great.
Offensively, his best attribute is his passing.
Yeah. So going forward in other eras, we've discussed all the different stuff that would happen with more talent, bigger players, stronger players, just the evolution of the game. I do think he would be fairly limited offensively as far as scoring the basketball. I don't know about Ben Wallace. That's pretty limited.
I would say that. When I saw that, I was like, ooh.
He's like on the same level as like Rodman. But yeah. I think he's athletic enough and coordinated and skilled enough. He could do a lot of the stuff you at least need your center to do offensively. Roll to the basket, catch lobs, get some offensive putbacks, stuff like that.
He could definitely do that.
I think, personally, I've always thought the 80s and 90s ring up questions. Today's doesn't ring. There's no question about Russell being great today because there are no big men anymore other than Jokic and Embiid. So, yeah, Jokic and Embiid would probably push him around, shoot over top of him and stuff. But why couldn't he average 15 rebounds a game and be a great shot blocker today? There's nobody in the league.
I don't think that's good, but that is Clint Capella. Like I say this, not really necessarily trying to completely insult them. Clint Capella gets you a lot of rebounds, he protects the paint, and he has the athleticism to do the essentials on offense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's really a pretty spot on comparison. With Jerry West, it's hard to figure out who he'd be a point guard, I would say, in my opinion at least, being at his stature. I mean, I think I compared him somewhat to Steve Nash with his being a sharpshooter. He did maybe a little bit more scoring, a little less passing version of Steve Nash maybe. Because I think he was a better scorer than Nash, but Nash, I think, passing-wise was a step above him. But I don't know. It's tricky because there's really it's all just opinionated. I mean, who knows?
I don't think your Clint Capella comparison is asinine. I don't. I mean, we've brought it up in other episodes. What does Russell look like if we don't transplant him? If we talk about him growing up with the things these other guys are growing up with. I mean, we brought that up with a bunch of other older players. I mean, I even said it in the Oscar episode. Oscar, you could have cut off his left hand and he still would have been the same player because he didn't use it, But he wouldn't do that if he grew up today. He would learn how to dribble with his left hand.
Yeah, he learned that before junior high. I mean,
right, exactly.
Middle school or something.
So it'd be interesting. But he wouldn't shoot the ball every 3 seconds or however,
The big thing with Russell is the one stat where he blew everyone out of the water except Wilt was rebounding. And later on, even somewhat shortly after he played, there's just not as many rebounds to get.
Yeah.
It's not even saying he'd be a worse rebounder. The rebounds just aren't there to get.
Yeah. He'd still be a great rebounder.
Yeah. He'd go out there, I think, and play defense and rebound in any era.
Mm-hmm.
But his stats are going to normalize, and the offensive points-wise are going to probably go down. The rebounds are going to go down just because there's just not the rebounds to get. But I mean, I've never said he couldn't rebound. Like, I'm not saying he was a great rebounder just because of when he played. Like, I think it's perfectly reasonable to think he'd still be a great rebounder and defender.
Does anybody in this room know who has the highest all-time rebounding rate?
Andre Drummond.
Yeah, it's Andre Drummond. Yeah. Sorry, wait, I interrupted.
No, I was pretty much done.
Okay.
I deserve a trivia point.
Oh, here we go. I knew it.
No, I'm not giving out points for that. All right, so that's the end of my portion of litigation, unless anybody has any questions for me.
I did. After
Okay.
your reminder before it was off air, I looked at Alex's list, so I was ready this time.
I tried to give you a reminder.
I'm
So we had
like
to sit here and wait.
scrambling over here to look. Well, you asked my dad why he has Shaq ahead. Why do you have Shaq below?
Championships.
Okay.
That's probably going to be the answer to every question y'all ask me. Just be prepared.
Yeah. I think you also got to look, though, swap them. What do you think Shaq does in that era? Shaq would get those rebounds plus about 25 more points.
Probably. I mean, he'd be Wilt.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
I'd say a little better. But, yeah. I don't know. I don't have any questions for you, really.
I mean, here's my thing with the championships. In the early 60s, first half of the 60s, the Celtics are the best team in the league, hands down. And they win every year. And then it kind of switches, and Wilt has the best team in the league, and the Celtics lose once. And then Wilt gets an even better team, and the Celtics beat them anyway. And I guess my other thing is we've seen really stacked teams after that in pretty much every era. Nobody can win that much. Now, the exception here is Bird and Magic had each other. And if you add them together, they pretty much did what the Celtics did in the 60s. But we all agree that we all have Mike ahead of Russell. We all have Mike ahead of, most everybody. He couldn't hold together for that long. He quit. He won 6. But we're talking just over half. And they couldn't handle it. We talked about in the Durant episode how he played on the most stacked team ever. They won 2 and then dismantled. We watched the the Lakers team right after this team with Wilt and Baylor and West. They won one. I'm trying to think of more, but I mean, like, nobody does this. I mean, obviously they have more than everybody, but Russell's the one constant. Everybody else leaves except for Sam Jones. Like, Havlicek's not there at the beginning. Sharman retires first, then Kuzi retires, and then Heinsohn retires. By the way, this is off topic, but do you know that Russell, both Joneses and Heinsohn were all drafted the same year?
Yeah.
How in the hell did they all get drafted in the same draft by the same team?
Yeah.
Anyway, then Casey Jones leaves or retires. By the end of this, I mean, Sam Jones is there the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of this, it's from the beginning, it's just Sam and Russell. And Havlicek's still there, but he wasn't there for the first 5 or whatever. You know, the constant here is Russell. And I think the winning thing is more complicated than we give it credit for. Because Russell also won 2 state championships in high school and won 2 NCAA championships. And we can't blame that on stacked teams.
Right.
Like, he went to San Francisco in college. You know, like, who the hell's that? And, you know, he was everywhere he went. He just let's just be honest. He was just willing to do things Wilt wasn't willing to do. Mm-hmm. Wilt wanted to look good. Wilt was Russell Westbrook, essentially. I really want to look good. If you talk shit about me, you're going to hurt my feelings. I'm either going to quit or hurt my team over it. And, like, the whole, like, Russell, whenever he blocked shots, would block them to his teammates. Which, first off, is asinine. His 48-inch vertical, I guess, kind of explains it. I guess he was up there waiting for the ball to get to him so he could pick out a teammate to tap the ball to. And, you know, you read all the articles about Wilt, where Wilt was spiking the ball as far into the crowd as possible because he thought it made him look good. You know? And Wilt would throw temper tantrums on the court if he went a couple possessions without the ball being thrown to him. And Russell didn't give a shit if he scored or not. You know, like, I'm just willing to do things on the basketball court you're not willing to do because I don't give a shit about stats and I don't give a shit about how I look publicly because I don't give a shit about the public because I don't like most of the public.
Yeah, he said that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, really, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I won't go there.
But and Wilt was very wrapped up in that. Wilt was very wrapped up in his own ego and his own image. You know, somebody wrote a newspaper article that he was a ball hog. So the next couple games, he refused to shoot the basketball. You know, like, what the fuck are you doing,
He did that
Wilt?
whole season just to get an assist.
Yeah, and then the next
Get an
season he
assist
decides to lead the
championship.
league in assists, all because the media called him a ball hog.
Yeah.
Like, this is the kind of egotistical guy we're talking about here. I don't remember where I started this, to be honest with you. I went off on a Wilt tangent. But I have a few more things over here on my paper I want to get off of here since I took the time to type this up. Here's one. 3 times during the 60s, the Celtics had the worst offense in the league and still won the championship. Now, all three of those years, they had the number 1 defense in the league, but they had the worst offense in the NBA and won the championship. And Russell's 13 seasons, he led the league in defensive win shares 11 times. Twice of those, or 2 times out of the 11, he doubled the person in second place in defensive win shares. He led the league in defensive win shares 10 straight years and is the all-time leader in defensive win shares. 27 win shares above Tim Duncan, who is second.
So, I won't go there.
How are they tracking his defensive win shares?
Yeah, that's what I was going to
Most of it's predicated on blocks and steals. They didn't record them.
No, is defensive win shares blocks and steals? I thought
I mean, those
defensive win
factor
shares
in.
would. I don't know. I don't know how to calculate defensive win shares.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I was going to ask.
I'm sure it's complicated just like win shares are.
Yeah, it's the same as that concept, just on the defensive end. we don't have to get into a giant discussion. I just didn't know how they were doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't ever know how to calculate any of these things. If it's not per game, like points, rebounds, assists, steals,
Right.
blocks, field goals, I don't know how to figure it out. Defensive win shares.
You just carry the one. You just carry the one.
Yeah. I don't know. We talk about win shares every episode, so I brought it up. But how they calculate defensive win shares, I have no idea. Yep, that's all I had over here. Does anybody else have anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
All right, do we want to give our closing statements on old Russell?
Sure.
Sure.
All right, we'll go reverse order to Ray.
All right. So, phenomenal player, great defender, destroyed the titles, which nobody will probably ever reach, because our big main guy, LeBron's not going to get there. So,
Did you think he was?
fuck no.
To say, he thought he was going to get to 11?
But I bet there was a bunch of delusional people out in this world thought he was probably going to get 15 and going to be done with it.
Well, I mean, that was the goal for the Heat, I guess.
I mean, he said that Miami. He's going to win one every year.
But, I mean, he deserves to be on the list. But, I mean, that's kind of, after this, you can determine that, where he's going to be placed, because it sounds like we get some strong arguments for up and down placement of Bill Russell. So, there you go.
All right, that leads to me. I think we pretty much covered everything with Russell today. He's the epitome of winning, I guess. He won everywhere he went, high school, college, the pros. Went out on top. Yeah, I don't know. It's just I don't like the old guys that much. It's no secret. But the championships are unignorable. That's all I got. Uncle Doug?
Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered everything. It's the championships is what moves him up there. I don't think he would be able to do that today or in another era. But he still did it, and you got to give him credit for it.
Yeah.
That's why he's at where he is on my list.
All right. And Drew?
Yeah, I think when I reevaluate my list at the end, I think I need to take a little more time and appreciate that he won 11 championships in 13 years, because I don't think I did that enough. But other than that, I think we've talked about what he did great, and he didn't love the people like Will did.
And Wade?
Well, I mean, I think we talked about all the stuff he did on the floor. He was very talented at numerous things. Did a lot of stuff that probably doesn't show up on a stat sheet to help his team win. So I think he obviously needs to be high on everyone's list. But with that being said, I just think you just have to put a little context in some of his accomplishments. Talking about when he played, who he played with, all that stuff. And sometimes it's just as simple of just comparing two people. Like, if Russell played Shaq, what do you think would happen? And just stuff like that. Or even someone as low as like Patrick Ewing. If Patrick Ewing played against Bill Russell, I personally don't see Bill Russell really stopping Patrick Ewing. But just stuff like that sticks out to me. But it's also not his fault. He played when he played. And he did what he was supposed to when he played. And won the most championships of all time. But was also on he was, just by pure Hall of Famers and number of talent, was on the most stacked team ever created, on the least talented league we've ever seen. So I just think you just had to put a little context into some of what Bill Russell did. But he does belong on the list.
Fair enough. And that will end our Bill Russell portion of the episode and will lead us to trivia. Drew?
First, can I have a board, please? Even though. Thank you, Wade.
You got us a good one today, Drew?
I do. This is going to be our first. The WNBA is going to play a part into this question.
WNBA.
All
Well,
right.
I'm not going to get this one.
No shit.
All right. What WNBA player, well, it's just this one specific one, has a bigger wingspan than LeBron James?
I have an answer.
I got an answer.
Mine's an educated guess.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about WNBA.
I got one.
I was surprised when I saw this, honestly.
Okay.
Is that everybody?
All right, let's
Yep.
see him.
Yeah.
I said Brittany Griner.
Okay.
I said the same thing.
I said Lisa Leslie.
That's what I said, Lisa Leslie.
None of this. Brianna Stewart.
Oh.
No
Stewart,
shit.
really?
Yeah,
Isn't she like 6'3"?
yeah, she's 5 inches shorter than him, but she has a 2-inch longer wingspan.
Wow. I
That's
did not know that.
She could touch the floor with those hands.
Yeah. Wow.
I
What is
know.
LeBron's wingspan?
I think like 7 or 7'1". She has like 7'3" wingspan, I think.
She has a foot longer wingspan than her body?
Oh my gosh. No wonder she's so good.
That's insane.
Wow.
Wow.
Who would like to go next?
Question.
That is a good question. I just thought of the tallest NBA player I knew.
I thought Brittany Griner was the obvious answer, to be honest.
I liked our choice, Ray. Oh, Lisa Leslie.
Yeah,
I
I
forget
that.
about Lisa Leslie, to be honest. She was really good. I have one, if that's fine.
All right, let's go.
Who was the youngest player in NBA history to record a double-double?
Youngest. Double.
Wow.
They're asking just for the player, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to give me the stats.
All right, I have a guess.
That'd be pretty mean if I made
I was thinking about the age.
Oh, no, you don't have to give me the age either. Just
Okay.
give me the player.
Ooh.
I got a guess. I think it's wrong, but I have a guess.
Yeah, mine's just a guess, too. I just thought of a really young player that I knew had some double-doubles.
All right, I'm ready.
Is that everybody?
Wait on Ray.
Yep, go ahead.
All right.
Dwight.
Okay.
Kevin Garnett.
I said Moses Malone.
Okay. Ray, who you put?
Garnett.
Oh, Alberta. It's T-Mac.
Really?
He was 18 years old in 175 days.
Holy crap.
He got
What?
10 points and 11 rebounds in 1997.
Wow.
Who was the big forward that the Pacers drafted straight out of high school?
Al Harrington.
No, before him.
Bender.
No.
Jonathan Bender.
Straight out of high school?
Yep. He would have come in about the time Kobe did. That's who I was thinking of.
Well, if you're thinking of Jermaine, we didn't draft Jermaine.
Yeah, Portland did. Portland
drafted
did.
Jermaine.
Portland draft.
Well,
That's what
I
was
took
thinking.
Dwight. I said Dwight because Dwight came out of high school and he averaged a double-double his rookie season.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Moses came out of high school, but he went to the ABA for 2 years
That's
first.
right,
So that's
yeah.
why I didn't put Moses. I thought about Moses too, but then I was like, he went to the ABA for 2 years, so it wouldn't have been NBA stuff.
I think the trick was just thinking of someone who got drafted. Like sometimes they get drafted out of high school, but don't play a game till they're like 19 something. But like Kobe and T-Mac, some of those guys actually play NBA games when they were freshly 18. Like,
Yeah.
Okay. Good question. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one, Wade. Who'd like to go next?
Yeah, I can go.
Okay.
All right.
I'll stick to my draft thing a little bit.
Oh,
God,
crap.
still didn't
Not,
put him
not
there.
exactly. Okay, 56 draft. That's when Bill Russell came out. The number one draft went to the Rochester Royals. They drafted Shahogan Green or something like that. I can't even pronounce the guy's name. Okay? Because they could not afford Russell. They were such a poor team, they couldn't pay his salary or signing bonus. He'd already told everybody what he wanted, and they couldn't pay it. So they didn't draft him.
What, $20,000?
It was 25. Yeah. So that's why the St. Louis Hawks drafted him. St. Louis Hawks were having trouble drawing people. And so Boston had somebody that was from St. Louis and had been a big star there. And that's why they traded the rights to Bill Russell for two gentlemen. Can you name those two guys?
I can't name one of them.
We've talked about this before. Now I can't.
Oh, man.
And by the way, at the time they made the trade, the Hawks won the title in '58 with these two guys. And I was Pettit there then, Drew? You would know.
Yeah.
I think that's
Well, Russell only lost twice. Once to Pettit, once to Wilt. So, I mean.
right. So this
Yeah.
would have been the
Yeah.
team. Yeah,
Mhm.
it would have been Pettit
Yeah.
and these two guys.
Well, darn.
I can't even think of two guys on Bob Pettit's team. So, like,
Right. I wrote two random names down.
all right, I got two names.
I got something.
Okay.
I'm ready. I wrote
All
it
right.
down.
All right, what you got, guys?
I just said damn it because I know we've talked about this before and I can't remember.
But
I,
go ahead.
I put Slater and Johnson.
I put Joe Smith and Alex Sapp.
Put Justin Ellison and Adam Potts.
It was Easy Ed McCauley.
Nah, I knew
That's
that
the
is.
one that was from St. Louis, and Cliff Hagan.
They're both Hall of Famers. So.
Right. Yeah. So that's the two guys the Hawks got for Russell.
Hopefully Justin listens to this episode.
He'll probably want to come on and talk
All
about
right,
that
so Ray,
Cowboys.
you got a question for us, buddy?
Oh,
I
God.
had one, but now I got to look up a different one. So who we got left? Is it just me?
I can go.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, there's only one player currently in the NBA averaging 2 steals a game. Who is it?
Oh, no.
Oh, crap.
Can you repeat the question?
There's only one player currently in the NBA averaging 2 steals per game.
I got
Who
an
is
answer.
Oh, baby, baby.
Who's
Okay, I
that?
got an answer.
Was that you singing, Wade?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
2 steals a game.
I'll give you a hint, Ray. It's not a Pacer.
Yeah, I was going to say, quit thinking of Pacer
no,
players.
no shit, huh? We can't even put together fucking winning games together. Man, I don't know.
Got it?
Yep, go ahead.
All right, what's everybody got?
I put Jalen Suggs with the Orlando Magic.
I said John Morant.
Chris Paul.
And
Thought about CP.
I said Chris Paul. Yeah.
The answer is DeJounte Murray from the Spurs.
Oh.
Who's having a hell of a season, by the way.
He is. We've mentioned him in other trivia, I think.
Yeah, I think he's like
19, 8, and 8.
Yeah, 19, 8, and 8, and 2 steals.
And he
Yeah.
get hurt, and that's why he didn't play in the All-Star game. or
I
something
thought he
like
did
that.
play in the All-Star
Did he
game.
play?
I thought he was a replacement for a hurt player.
Yeah, he was.
He replaced, was it Draymond? Something like that? I don't know.
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah, replaced Draymond. That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah.
Ray.
All right. Which legendary Iowa girls high school basketball star was drafted by Golden State?
I was like, you got to bring this back to something relative, like a high school girls basketball player. Like, what?
I know who you're talking about, but I have no idea what her name is.
I don't even know what you're talking about. So.
Okay.
Well, she was super famous. I mean, in Iowa, she was,
The Golden Child.
yes, I mean, she was something else.
Who would have thought we'd have 2 female basketball questions in one episode?
Well, I had a draft question, and I didn't want to do the draft question, so
Did she play in the WNBA or anything?
I don't know the name. If it's the girl I'm thinking of, she was pre-WNBA.
Oh.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, but
I don't know.
I'm gonna have no answer. I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah.
All right, I got an answer.
Not Iowa girl.
Just wrote a player down.
Yeah.
Drusif, you got one, buddy?
Yep.
Uncle Doug.
Yeah, I got one.
All right. I said McGee.
Is that Cheeks McGee?
But Sue Bird.
I said Ann Meyer.
It's Denise Long.
Okay.
So does it say when she played?
No, it just gives her name.
Okay. Because Ann Meyer did have a tryout with an NBA team.
Huh.
She was actually a little bit before Cheryl did it.
So I just want to say that we just went all of trivia without getting a question right.
Yeah, we pretty much sucked.
So the scores are still as follows. Ray with 21, Uncle Doug with 44, Drew with 45, Alex with 51, and Wade with 58. Wade's lead was obviously not cut into this week because the rest of us suck. So we appreciate you tuning in for our Bill Russell episode. And please tune in next week for our
Carl Malone.
Karl Malone.
Oh yeah, Karl Malone, the mailman episode. I should have known that. And thanks for tuning in to Sports the NEMO Way.